Hey, you're listening to Fat and Greasy Citizens, a podcast about Shakespeare. I'm Fat.
And I'm Greasy. Every week we do a deep dive into every act of every Shakespeare play ever written, mostly while drinking.
More specifically, I'm Chuck. I'm a former English major and now a digital editor who cares a lot about Shakespeare.
And I'm Gabe. Let's do it!
Hail and well met, my knuckleheads. It is us, Queen Lizzo Uno. We just took a DNA test and we're 100% that queen, welcoming you to Fat and Greasy Citizens. In this episode, Chuck and Gabe delve into A Midsummer Night's Dream, Act 1, in which we learn that Theseus, Duke of Athens, is getting married to Hippolyta, Queen of the Amazons, a woman he probably met after defeating her and her people in combat. You know, like the best couples, and he's going to throw a big party for it. Meanwhile, Aegeus, an Athenian citizen, has come to complain to the Duke that his daughter Hermia won't marry Demetrius, the dude he picked out, but instead loves a fellow called Lysander. We also learn that Helena, Hermia's friend, loves Demetrius, who won't give her the time of day. It's a love square! If you see a faded sign at the side of the road that says 15 miles to the love square! We also meet the Mechanicals, a group of morons who will be putting on a play for the Duke's wedding. Enjoy.
Okay, Midsummer's Act 1. I gotta say, I think Shakespeare knows what the fuck he's doing now. This is a well-structured first act, in that...
It really is.
Not only... The pieces don't connect, but it feels like a director who's like, yeah, but I've got all the pieces on the board and I know where they're going, and everyone's going to mention we're going to the woods, and then that's all I need to get done in the first act. Like it just feels like he takes his time with all three moving pieces, and I don't know if we've. I don't think anyone knows if we've successfully gone chronologically so far, but it feels like we have, and this is just like when he got his light bulb over his head and started to figure out exactly how he wanted to lay stuff out.
Yeah, and I also think that it's the first time we've seen the minor characters interwoven in a way that is other plays have the minor characters are connected, like plot wise, but now in this one the minor characters are important, like emotionally, to the whole thing. Like Bottom is as integral to the whole thing as Oberon, as Theseus, as Lysander. You know, like everybody's a crucial part of the puzzle. I feel like this is the first play that we've read so far where that's true, where you can't really get rid of any. There's no air in this. It's pretty tight.
And I think this play back to front. I haven't looked at this play in 20 years. I just know it because it's famous. And so, to me, I'm experiencing Act 1 just as Act 1. And so, the way what you're saying resonates with me is that, he just lingers over the minor characters because he wants to. They're not the assistants of the major characters or anything else. There's just nope, we're going to take a third of the first act and devote it to these guys putting on a play. And it's up to you to figure out why. But I'll explain why at some point. But for now, just we are going to move stage right over to these folks who just are going to yell at each other about a play for 20 minutes.
It's interesting you say that, because I hadn't really thought of that this time, the lower status characters, like Bottom, like all of the what the hell do you call them? The tinkerers, not the tinkerers.
They have such random. There's the tinkers. There's a guy who just inflates weaving or something like that. They're all very specific.
But there's a famous group name for them, and now I can't think of it. Well, anyway, it's because they don't directly, because those characters don't directly work for the the Duke or anything like that. They're kind of free to be more interesting characters, and just the idea that the real people, the non fantasy people, get intertwined with the fantasy people through Bottom as the character is really interesting. It becomes all of a sudden that's that kind of status, beat the slave kind of thing, doesn't really happen in this play. It's more I think that actually gave it forced Shakespeare to be more interesting and intertwine them in a way that made more sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'd say, like, again, I just know this act, but this act starts out from, like, the god level, and then it goes to, like, the people who are clearly high class, but they need to go and ask permission of the gods, and then down to these schmoes. And so, it does seem to be treating each of them as, like, worthy of the time of the audience. I had to look up Theseus's Wikipedia page ahead of this, but yeah, he is supposed to be the guy that started Athens. So, so he's introduced at the beginning, and he's I think the Duke here, which is
he's
kind
like
of.
I mean, that's the thing, and not only that is the Duke. This is the first time that we've seen one of the the god character that you've pointed out in Comedy of Errors, like the person who, like the Deus ex machina, who comes on and says, "And now I proclaim everyone will be wed." This is the first time where the Theseus, the Duke character actually has something going on. Like he's more human in this. It's like, I'm about to get married,
which
himself.
Yeah, there's something fun and weird and dreamlike to me about it being Theseus and Hippolyta. Like, I don't know. It's like if you tried to explain the fact that you have these two figures of mythology, and they're explained with these as being these gods. I don't know. It's like if you described, like, oh, this is Zeus, and he was the president of Greece. Just like trying to explain, like, who these people are, or explain it to an Elizabethan audience. Just something about it just seems like weird out of the gate. In that, just like Theseus, this guy who did all these things, Hippolyta, like, of the Amazons, they just seem like two rich people getting married. And it's, I don't know. It just seems to, like, set up from the beginning that, like, he knows what he's doing and he's having fun with these characters. There's just something, like, fundamentally off about it in a way that I kind of like coming in on Theseus and Hippolyta, like, planning their wedding. It seems like, I don't know, like, this is a bad comparison, but, like, at the beginning of Naked Gun, where, like, Idi Amin and the Ayatollah Khomeini and Yasser Arafat are all in a room. It's just like what the Naked Gun is doing there is making fun of Americans' idea that how the Legion of Doom works. And, like, this just being like, well, who is Theseus? He was like a duke, and he had a wedding to plan. And so he, and the first thing he does is he explains they talk about the moon, because everyone talks about the moon in this act. And then he...
boy, do they lay on the similes in the first few, like, monologues. Is like, this is like a that, and like a this. And it's like, okay, all right, easy. Imagery, similes coming fast and furious in the beginning. Holy cow.
And then he's talking to his wife, and he's like, as you remember, wife, we decided to get married. And then he sends out a guy, Philostrate, if we're going to go
Best
with...
part in the whole play. You don't say a word. You just come in and you're told to go get somebody.
But his job is to get everyone ready for revels. Like, in the playbill, it just says that his title is the Master of Revels to Theseus. And he's just like, hey, no fucking funerals. Go out, get everyone ready to party. Go do it. And just...
Which suggests that maybe Philostrate isn't great at his job. If Theseus has to be, like, preface it with, like, hey, no funerals for this one.
Sorry. Listen, boss, I'm not going to do that again. I get it. I swear.
Yeah, and Theseus, like, I also like how Theseus comes right out of the gate with, like, a completely unrelatable joke. Like he says something like, this day is going by like when a widower keeps an inheritance from a young man. Like you do. Like everybody can relate to.
But out of the gate, it's like, yeah. But he's also he's angry at the moon, and then he's like, the moon is like, is like a young man with money bags being held over him by an old widow, and it is just odd out of the gate. And from there, this is one of the first places where you mentioned that out of the gate he starts talking about how, like, hey, Hippolyta, I took you violently, but now we're gonna have a party. this is one of the first places where I feel like Shakespeare's starting to land it better, because like I can make excuses for it here. Like when I read that, I'm thinking to myself, well, you're an Amazon. That's probably how you flirt. Like you probably don't know how to go out on dates. You probably only thing you really need to know how to do is like fight to the death, and whoever wins gets to decide if they murder the person or else drag them home. But it was like the first piece of like, oh hey, here's some anti-woman violence, but it actually felt like it flowed out of the character. And so again, unlike the other plays, it starts to feel like, oh, these things seem to kind of like line up along character lines.
I neglected to look up the mythological situation. I assume, I mean, like just talking about it now, I assume that there was some, like, did Theseus conquer the Amazons or something like
that?
Yeah,
and to be fair, I only know that because I've watched Wonder Woman cartoons with my daughters, and Hippolyta is Wonder Woman's mom. So that's
okay. So all right, so like that makes sense, right? That, I mean, it also makes sense why later in the scene, when Theseus is like, well, we got to kill you if you don't do as Dad says, that Hippolyta's kind of pissed at him because he says something to the effect of, why are you quiet, to Hippolyta, because she's clearly pissed that this is going on, So like they're not married yet, and there's definitely this idea that they don't necessarily like the union was not as peacefully met as maybe we think.
So I think I completely missed that. So I read her as being like basically pretty docile, but you feel like essentially like there's some conflict there going in.
Yeah, well, I mean, if in fact we're to take maybe the mythology as read and
well, yeah, he comes out and says it was violent. So
yeah, I'm trying to find the line here. It's toward the end of scene 1. Let me see. That's the wrong play.
That's okay. I trust your gut to.
He says he turns to her, and it's in the punctuation. I mean, obviously the punctuation can't be trusted because things have been added and subtracted over hundreds of years. But he interrupts the line. Theseus interrupts himself. There's like a hyphen, and then it goes like. Why so quiet, Hippolyta, or something like that. There's a moment that you can tell she's angry with him.
Basically, what's with the face? Yeah,
it's like, well, why are you looking at me like that? It's kind of.
Oh yeah, no, I see it. 122. To death, or to a vow of single life. Come, my Hippolyta, what cheer, my love?
Yeah, he says he's like, hey, you either die or you go live as a nun. Hey. What? Well, and he looks at his wife to be and says, "What? What did I say?"
No, that's great. I completely missed that.
Yeah, it's that look of, I'm going to marry this guy, and he's telling this young lady who's in love with this kid that she either does what Dad says or she gets the axe. Like there's like a moment where he's like the beginning of that kind of like, oh wait a second, maybe Theseus isn't as great a guy. Obviously that violence thing. No, the relationship isn't as great as maybe we think.
No, that's great. I completely missed that. Kudos to you for understanding this better than I do.
I mean, it's funny. Like you said the dream thing, and it's like it's funny because I think you just take into you assume, right, because it is such a famous play, like the dream part of it. Yes, there's a huge fantasy element. But I don't know, like I was struggling with my memories of this play, as I think I mentioned at the end of last week's episode. This is the first one that I ever did. I did this in high school, and I remember it wasn't like the full version. Like it was deeply edited because high school kids in Shakespeare it's a train wreck sometimes. But like the. I wonder if my memories are informing my reading of it now in the context of everything we've read so far, because this definitely feels way more stylized, because it rhymes and they're, you know what I mean? Like it's like rhyming a lot, and like everybody seems to be speaking in a way more dreamlike, loftier manner, And
I think that they also speak in a way that's more straightforward to the modern ear. Like there's so many times when someone just says something and I'm like, oh, that was straightforward. Like, I don't think anyone would need subtitles to get that through. Like, you wouldn't need to your point, like, I feel like you could put a lot of it in high schoolers' hands and they would say, okay, this actually means the thing I'm saying. It's not a metaphor on top of a metaphor put through an Elizabethan translation machine.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more accessible, you know.
Like the what's the Aegeus, the dad? Like, he just straight up says, like, listen, you son of a bitch, you said nice things to her and you made her like you. That's his whole argument. Is like, like, I love the fact that, I mean, Aegeus, and it's no great shock to me. Like, as soon as I read that, I was like, wasn't the father in the last one Aegeon? And then I looked it up, like, what's Shakespeare's deal with this? And then I read somewhere, I found that it's Greek for shield. And then I was like, oh, okay, so this is like taken right from Commedia dell'arte, like the like early Renaissance style of like in almost every Commedia dell'arte play, they're young lovers, and then there's some parent that has to be gotten around. Like, there's some parent who is an obstacle to their love, you know, and he's a shield for his daughter. So I was like, oh, okay, so he's just like really hitting the nail over the head with these names and stuff like that. But like, his whole argument in the beginning is like, I gave my daughter to this dude, and then the bitch has the nerve to fall in love with this other guy. Like, it's like, he's so like, has no. His argument is like, he cheated. He gave her trinkets. He said nice things to her. He literally, like, makes the argument that, like, he made her like him. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like,
they developed love together. What the fuck is a guy supposed to do when that happens?
Like, what?
He's like genuinely upset, and then she goes and falls in love with a guy.
Yeah, it's
I already had a guy picked out.
It's like, he basically says that she owes that obedience to me, and in the back and forth, the Aegeus the dad makes the argument to Theseus. He calls out Lysander. Lysander blows him off, but no one makes any direct argument to Hermia. Like, it's all just dudes arguing to whoever they think has the power over Hermia. So Lysander ignores him and states his case to Theseus. Demetrius makes his case both to his dad, or to Aegeus, and I think Aegeus makes his case to Theseus. But everyone just, like, talks about her like she's not even in the fucking room. And it's
until she actually speaks up, and then, like, which is, again, it's interesting how, like, then I got strong vibes from, like, Kate from Taming of the Shrew. Like, she comes out, saying, like, wait a second, I love this guy. That's the beauty of it. Like, there's so interesting is that Theseus says something to the effect like, well, Aegeus, your dad should be like a god to you.
Yeah. And
her comeback a little later on is like, I don't want to lose my virginity to a man I don't love. And there's like this like almost Christian, like, clash, like this idea that, well, parents are like God. You should obey them. And it's like, yeah, but should you also just give up your sexuality to the first dude who walks along? Shouldn't it be attached to some kind of love? Like, all right from the beginning, there's this really great kind of ideological clash. Like, it's really cool. It's something that maybe we haven't seen before yet.
And it's laid out in language that, like, doesn't seem too, like, it's trying too hard, but it's also very straightforward. Like, at one point Theseus says, like, well, yeah, what'll happen is, like, you'll either marry Demetrius or you'll die the death. And, like, you'll die the death is the most, like, it's just like, oh, wow, that's just really straightforward. That works in modern English. And the whole back and forth just feels like you could have anyone say it and it doesn't feel flowery or anything. It just feels like, it almost feels like, what's the name of the guy that does, the Facebook movie and The West Wing and Um,
The guy, the director,
the director-writer.
Sorkin.
Yeah, Sorkin. And then, like, everything's just, like, it's a little too much, just like you're speaking philosophically, but it's very straightforward. There's nothing to, not much to read into any of it. Like, it's really straightforward, didactic arguments back and forth. But it's really effective, and it lets you understand where everyone's coming from. And like Lysander's point is, like, I got everything this guy has, plus she loves me. Like, he's just like, I got as much money.
Shouldn't that put me over the top?
Like, it's basically
I'm
a
like
tie.
the same guy, but she loves me. You know?
And
like the only problem, and that's the thing, is Lysander has the first really good joke of the whole thing, because he's like, hey, you like him so much, why don't you marry him?
Yeah, no, that's great.
You know, like, marry each other if you like each other so much.
So, yeah,
It's a really funny joke.
It's like, she likes me, your dad likes you. It seems like we're solid here. And he also, Lysander, I feel like they're going back and forth, and, like, even though they're talking about Hermia dying or being stuck in a nunnery for the rest of her life, it's at a relatively high level. And then Lysander accuses Demetrius of sleeping with Helena and like wooing her that way, and then not caring about her in any way. And that seems like a level up in, like, grossness. Like, the whole accusation against Lysander so far is, like, you read poetry under the moonlight, and that's not cool. But the accusation against Demetrius is, you slept with this woman, she fell for you thereafter, you abandoned her, now you're trying to marry this other woman. And in response to that, yes, Theseus gives that ultimatum to Hermia, but he also says, like, oh yeah, I thought of that, and then I forgot, so let's get out of here. I think
kind of like the fact that Theseus, like the idea that Demetrius had sex with Helena is already known around the town. Kind of like, oh yeah, I heard that. You know, it's like, hey, didn't you have sex with Helena? He's like, yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, I think it leads great to the line that you caught that I missed, to just be like, oh yeah, no, I heard that and I forgot that. Anyways, let's get out of here. It's like, wait, weren't we all just operating under the assumption that, like, different facts matter? No? Shit. Okay. He's just like, yeah, no, I forgot it. And I'm going to forget it again now. And we're going to go. Fuck off. I'm powerful.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, another bit of that kind of, like, I feel like there's a lot of, like, religious, really interesting, like, Christian religious analysis going on in the beginning, because what I think is interesting in Shakespeare, it comes up a lot, this idea of a nunnery, sending a woman to become a nun is a punishment, right? It is, you know, you either die or you get sent off to the monastery or whatever, or the
yeah, you know, but also in
like that, it's such a, like, conflicting idea. This idea, like, you should be a servant of God and do the right thing and obey your father, but if you fuck up, I'm going to send you to be with God more. You know, like, it's, well, like, the punishment.
There's, you know? the one part that I found, like, tough to read, and I had to read it 3 or 4 times, is there's this metaphor about the rose that Theseus reads to her, and essentially he says that, like, listen, if you give your life over to God, and we all know he means Christian God, even though we're talking about going to the temple of Diana or whatever, but he says, if you give your life over to God, then listen, that's great. There's nothing better. You will ascend to everything you want in heaven. But you'll also wither and die on earth. And wouldn't it be better if your rose was distilled while it was here? And he's basically saying, like, yeah, you'll get to heaven, it'll be great and whatnot. But, like, you are not getting laid. And I really think that's the straight up argument. It's just like, everyone's going to tell you it's great and you're saving your soul for Jesus. You're not. It's a prison. It's a prison for ladies. And this is your only chance to have sex.
It's a lot about sex, because, like, the idea is, like, you know, Hermia's whole thing is, she says, I don't want to have sex with a guy who I don't love, and, like, almost everybody else in the scene is like, just give it up. Just give it up to Demetrius. That's all we're asking.
It's just like, it's him or nothing. So, like, do you want to have sex with anyone? Because that's pretty much, yeah, it's...
I'm your dad. I know better. I know best who's going to bone you 3 ways to Sunday, and it's Demetrius.
I wonder if it gave him any more flexibility. That's the too bad she's a whore equivalent of Midsummer Night's Dream, 3 Ways from Sunday. I wonder if it gave him more leeway to like joke about the church and whatnot whenever he sets his plays in Italy or Athens or something and says like, oh, here's the priest of gobbledygook bygone religion. We all understand he's a friar. We call him a friar. We call this guy a priest. We call this thing a nunnery. But no, we're talking about ancient bygone pagan gods, not the thing right down the street that, charges everyone taxes and whatnot. Because it's all positioned in the same way that like Perseus is positioned as like not Perseus, I'm getting my Clash of the Titans mixed up. Theseus is positioned as just like a local governor, like the Temple of Diana or whatever else. It's just a nunnery, and we know what it is. And so none of it feels terribly necessary, but I wonder if it allowed him to get past the politics of the age to just say like, oh no, I'm talking about ancient pagan gods in Greece. I'm not talking about the Anglican Church or anything else.
Yeah. And I feel like playwrights at the time, like Moliere is right around here too. Like he's like, I want to say he's slightly after Shakespeare or maybe slightly before. I can't remember, but like around the same, like the Renaissance.
Yeah.
And he did similar things where he would make fun of the church, but couch it in these like, pretty, like in Tartuffe, like in the play Tartuffe, like Tartuffe is a fake religious guy. He's a charlatan, a fraud. Mm-hmm. But he gets away with a lot of like jabs at the church using this character. Like they're masters at it. I think Shakespeare slips in a lot of criticism. In here, like Shakespeare didn't get caught.
Right.
Moliere got caught.
What happened to him? I don't know my history.
The church just got really pissed, and I think he fell out of favor pretty fast. He might have gone to jail for it. I have to look it up.
Editor's note: Moliere was born shortly after Shakespeare died, and although he was never jailed for his plays, Tartuffe was denounced by the Catholic Church and banned by the French courts.
But like that idea of like concealing your analysis of the church, in these like fun little comedies was like the drama du jour.
So I think it works as both like as criticism of the church, but it also like I think we need to come up with like an ongoing description for two things. First of all, completely unnecessary violence to women that doesn't serve the plot, but also local.
Let's call it Elizabethan.
Elizabethan drama. All right.
A little another example of Elizabethan drama.
And secondarily, just moving the plot forward by just saying like, oh yeah, there's a law here, and it says this thing has to happen. Obviously, like that was the entire point of the last play, Comedy of Errors, where they're just like, oh yeah, there's a law here in town, you got to go to jail.
Yeah, again, it happens where like Theseus does the same thing. He's like, well, we can't break the law, and then it's like, but you're the Duke, can't you do anything?
Yeah, it's just like, well, this is Athens, and anyone who's read their Athenian history knows that you got to get married if your dad wants to, but if you don't want to, you can go to lady prison, and if not, you die. It's history. So, not at all what I just decided I needed to play, but just like you have an authority figure come in, say like, oh no, this is the law here. So, and also here's my plot. Here's your conflict. Cool, great, gone.
Look, lady, I don't write them. I just enforce them.
I'm just Theseus.
Yeah, I wrote that one, but I also enforce them.
I'm lowercase t Theseus. I'm not the Theseus. I'm Theseus the Third. My grandpa, he wrote that law.
He's the one you have issue with. Take it up with him. He's dead.
Like I said, Theseus says like Theseus says all that shit. Hippolyta gives him a look. He says, "Hey, I'm gonna have a meeting with Aegeus and Demetrius," so they leave. And right after that, Lysander, he says, "Hey, what? You look pale. What's the matter, babe?" Like she was just told she has to put herself to death or go to a nunnery or sleep with some guy that she just told a room full of people she just want to sleep with. And he's just like, hey,
I love that like classic thing where like he tries to make her feel better by just saying things that are infinitely worse. You know, like that idea of like, hey, lovers are always in hot water like this. You know, the true love is so like it always is oppressed. And then all these examples that come up with like just people like being killed and dying and stuff. And at the end, she's like, well, if lovers are, you know, basically doomed, you know, maybe we can, maybe we could just like tough it out. Like he just like everything it just becomes so dire after that. Like he's so upbeat the whole time. It's like, hey, it's like, you know, like when, there's always like some parent who says no, or, you know, there's always some like, or war. Sometimes true love is stopped because one of them just gets.
That's what's great. Right? He's like, it's either a terrible match or whenever it is a match, someone just gets shot with a fucking arrow for no reason. Yeah. Like you're about to fall into their arms and then you just get cancer and die. Like that's just, and one of the things that I like about it is that like, it feels really self-aware. Like it feels like you're turning towards the crowd and being like, listen, babe, we're in a play and this is what happens in plays. So let's get on with it. Because like, if it hadn't happened 60 seconds ago, someone was going to walk on stage and then Helena walks on stage and it's just like, and then we'll tell her what we're going to do and she's going to sell us out. And it feels like you could put it on in a completely self-aware way to the audience where it really works. Like, and Hermia responds to it, with just like a pile of like deities and histories about like other lovers that have gone through things and whatnot. And it just seems like really purple prose. And that's the first time that we start to get rhyming. And so one of the things that, that I liked about with like the dreaminess of this is it just feels like since I think everything rhymes after that. It feels like we just shift into like a fourth dimension, like a sonnet dimension or just like romantic bullshit dimension. But it feels like you can see a spell. You could present it as you could see a spell coming over them. You could present it as just like they are self-aware and they're speaking to the audience like we're in romantical space right now or something. But it just feels like they flip a switch. And if you wanted to, since it rhymes, you could make it musical, you could do anything else. But like once they start just like listening to their own bullshit, like I don't have much of any notes on like the next 100 lines, but it is just like rhyming back and forth about like things just revolve around the idea of love. And it all of a sudden gets really fanciful and magical and just structurally it's cool.
It almost sounds like the what do you call it? The overture in not the overture, but the like the first song in a musical where it's like, you know, like the first song of Hamilton, it lays out.
Yeah.
This is the history and this is what's going on. Like lovers have always gone.
Yeah. This is love. Either you're dead or you're too old.
Yeah. And there's something great about that. Like it's it almost prefaces a lot of things like it, you know. Like I think the exchange, the, you know, the classic Shakespearean antithesis that he does where it's like, you know, he'll put one thing clearly, one character or one line clearly diametrically opposed to another one for effect. And, you know, like this idea of Hermia and Helena, that first exchange is so cool, you know, where it's like, first of all, I think Helena is one of my favorite characters of all time. Like she's just, I've seen this play maybe 4 or 5 times, and like obviously I've done it too. And I think that Helena definitely is the character who you get your best comedic actress to do that part. Like she's the character that is the most fun to play because I mean she comes on. Like her first words out of her mouth is kind of like, "Who you calling? You calling me fair, bitch? He loves you." Like she's right out of the gate. She's frantic.
So that's,
you know, and she doesn't let up for the entire play. She's like that.
Because I don't know where this is going. So to me, it sounded like Moaning Myrtle. But is she like a constant ball of like insecurity or like?
Yeah, well, yeah. It's like her whole thing. and this is like she says as much in the scene where it's like she doesn't understand. She's like, I'm just as good looking as this woman, and the guy that I love wants her. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Like, and then it makes it worse. And what's so great about the exchange between the two of them is how much Hermia is just like, well, he hates me. It's like, oh yeah, well, I wish that hate were the love that I had for him. Like it just keeps escalating. Like when she says, well, I frown him all the time. Well, I wish your frowns would tell my smiles the trick, because I can't make it work. Like it just keeps going and going. But it's like the best Helenas that I've ever seen have always been like these high strung, like Rachel Dratch, like, character. Like, like there's like, it's such a centerpiece. Like it's like, I can see whenever I see or read this play, it's like, I just want to know who Helena is. It's so much fun to be this pissed and like not, and not to have any kind of, to be completely out of ideas, and then like when the plot starts to twist later on, it gets even better, like, because she's so like, what the fuck.
Well, it's wonderfully universal, and like that's what it feels like to be young. And like there's a time when you're young and you want someone to fall in love with you, and you're just like, am I just a dumb schlump? And it's like, well, yes, you are. But then at some point you like maybe get it together, and you're just like, well, why don't they like me? And it's just like, because it's fucking arbitrary. Like there's no like, you could have a twin and they could like the twin. There's nothing you can do. It's going to drive you fucking insane, but there's literally nothing you can do. If you try hard to make it happen, it'll just be repulsive to them. It's the thing you want most in the world. There's nothing you can do about it. And in having her like song her way through this, it seems like a great, again, like knowing way of just turning to the audience, just being like, yeah, it fucking sucks. It fucking sucks that you're wired to care about this thing more than anything, and there's nothing you can do, and there's no logical criteria for it.
And I feel like we've all been there, and I think that's why Helena is such a strong character, because it's like we've all been. Well, I'll speak for myself. We've all been on the bad end of unrequited love, right? Like we've all like this is the person I have the crush on the most, and they don't fucking know you're alive, and like this, and like it's like she's so perfect, because like by the end of this scene, her whole plan stinks. Her whole plan is like, well, I'll tell him that they're gonna go, that Lysander and Hermia are gonna elope, and then he'll like it that I told him.
Right, and
like, it's like that's such a like I've been in that place where it's like, if I just help them out, if I help my crush out, then they'll reciprocate.
They'll see what a good guy I am.
But it's never gonna happen.
Also, like the play is ready to end. Like they're gonna leave. He's already slept with you. You're as good looking as her. It's about to work out in your favor if you just don't fucking do anything. But you're so eager to be the instrument to make that person happy that you can't think strategically. You're just like, oh, I think he might like it in this particular second. So
that's such a great point, that she can't help herself. Like she can't be patient with it. Like, as you say, like if she just sat there, everything would work out, but she can't.
Because
she's not allowed. Like in her head, she can't do it. If you
can open yourself up to the possibility that you're not going to get this person, then you can be patient about it. You can say, well, it's low odds, but the smart thing is do nothing. But when you're a psycho in love, you just have to do something. You have to err on the side of taking action. And so you just talk yourself into, I was in I think 9th grade, and I gave a girl like those actual heart candy boxes. And it was just like,
right out of the comic book.
Yeah, just like, would have been better to do nothing, little guy. Just give it some time, rather than be like, have you seen this Tom and Jerry cartoon?
Well, that's the
this is what I think people do in romantic gestures.
That's the thing, is that you're so desperate for that person's attention that you don't know when you're overstepping. Like what's so great about Helena in that moment is that she knows in her head that once Lysander and Hermia go away, then she can have Demetrius, probably. But in her head, she's like, no, that's not enough. I have to eradicate them.
Yeah.
Like, I have to eradicate Hermia as an option.
He has to know she sucks.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. It's like when you watch, well, I'm sure that you have better taste than to watch The Bachelorette, but my wife and I do. Like, there's always somebody there's always somebody for every season, there's always somebody who takes it upon themselves to be the righteous person and tell the main contestant that person's no good. You know, because they think because this act of selflessness is going to be rewarded with some kind of affection, and it just never is. You know, like if I tell him that she's not here for the right reasons, then he'll like me, and it's not true.
It's not how human nature works.
No, it just doesn't happen that way.
So
Helena is like a perfect Helena could be on The Bachelorette tomorrow. Like, she's made for it. Like, she's perfect.
This is a dumb tiny thing, but like
sorry.
No, it's great. They're rhyming back and forth for like 100 lines, and like, so it feels like they're moving into this other space, or like they're in the rhyme zone or something. And at one point, Helena and Hermia go back and forth, and so one of them says love, and the other one says move, and they have to make that rhyme. And so in order to do that, you have to bend one of those words. And so it works for me on like a 8th degree like English phonics level, and that like that's when you have to let the audience know that just like we're going to start changing the way words sound, because like we're not, it's like when you go into a musical number in a play or in a movie, it's just like we're not in reality anymore. And so for all I know, love and move actually rhymed 400 years ago, so this means nothing.
They did.
Okay. And so would it be love and mauve, or what would it be?
I think it's probably flatter than that. It was probably like mauve and love. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, but I think they work for the Globe Theater. It's a guy and his dad, and they actually put on productions. They've I don't know how they've done it, but they've reconstructed the Shakespearean dialect.
Wow.
And it explains a lot of those things, a lot of those moments in some of his plays that don't look like they rhyme now.
But now that they feel like fun challenges and opportunities, like, or at least here it does. Like sometimes you're just like, well, shit, you just look like an asshole. But
yeah, and that's the thing is that there are actually quite a few jokes in his comedies that don't land because of the pronunciation is so different now. Like just like they don't rhyme anymore, so it doesn't make sense, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, but what's interesting is that because now they're pronounced differently, it does add to what you say, like that disorienting. Like if you're listening to that in the audience, your ear is going to pick that up.
Yeah, and I don't know, it just feels like they are tilting towards this other place that's not quite reality, which is obviously in tune with the themes of the play. Okay, before we move on, anything else about Helena that you want to hit on?
about Act Helena?
Yeah.
About this play, Amid Helena's...
I like to see you in the crowd when she first comes on stage. She's like, yeah! Get it!
It's funny. I can't tell you how many times I left a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I'm always thinking about Helena because they always put their best person there.
It's like when Kramer opens the door and the crowd's just like, woo!
Yeah, it's like she is. It's like Bottom. Bottom is similar, and he's coming up in this next scene. Bottom is similar, where it's like you want to put your best person there because it's a fun role, you know.
Well, so segue there. Like, I'm glad that you have that you've seen this play so much, and that you can think of different ways to do Bottom. Because my fucking brain is broken, and all I can think of is the president as Bottom. Like, it's just like that's all. It's he's just a bragging asshole trying to do everything, and that's the only voice I hear. Like, I tried to think of different ways, and I was just like, nope. Like, he's become the asshole in my brain for everything, and so like it's just any asshole. There's so many flavors of asshole, but now there's just one asshole in my head, and that's the solution to every casting choice. So I'd love to hear, like, in your brain, like, how do you do Bottom?
That's the thing, is that I think Bottom I'm so glad we read 3 different plays before we got here, because I feel like all of our fools in the other plays, all of our idiotic characters, our comic relief characters have always been comic relief in a comedy. All of our like low status comedy characters have been servants, have been people who are just there to kick around, you know. But Bottom is finally a break from that mold. Like he's not. He is his own person. He's way more confident than any of the other idiots that we've seen so far. You know, like he really does think that the words coming out of his mouth are smart. And yeah, obviously, you can make tons of connections to the president. But like the idea that I've always seen it best played where Bottom is. He's not. He's more of like a Ricky Gervais or Steve Carell in The Office kind of character, where
same boundless confidence, but you know,
that confidence where it's kind of like I'm hilarious. You know, like
I could totally see Ricky Gervais. Yeah, I could totally see Ricky Gervais being. I could be the cat. You need a cat?
I'll be the lion. Do you want to be I can roar, and it's like, well, you can't. If you roar, you're going to scare everybody. Well, I can roar really small too. I can do it all. He's like. I think like if you put a little eagerness in Bottom, he comes off as less of an asshole, so much as just a guy who's unaware of how much of an asshole he's being. You know what I mean? Like I think he's like one of the all-time great boobs in plays. Like he's just a fool, you know. But it's coupled with that confidence that I think is like now at least in this country is a hallmark of great comedy characters, you know. Like it's funny. I was watching. It was Stephen Fry. I was watching Stephen Fry talk about comedy, and he might have been quoting somebody else, but he said the difference between English comedians and American comedians is he referenced the scene in Animal House when John Belushi goes up to the guy playing the guitar and breaks it. He says like American comedians would want to be the John Belushi and English comedians would want to be the guy playing the guitar. Like that's the meteor role, you know, like not the confident one,
right?
Not the brash, confident one, but the one who is constantly beleaguered, you know, like the guy who's being stepped on.
Who's finally got to see, who's practicing I Gave My Love a Cherry all week and finally gets to do it.
And it's just shattered in front of him. But I think like Bottom is, for the first time we see like, and this is before Falstaff and all these great like garish characters, you know, he's the character who he's brazen, you know. That's why it works, because he puts himself 100% into everything that happens to him. Like even when he gets the head of an ass in a few scenes, it's his kind of like failure to like believe, you know, like it's his failure. It's his failure to fail. Like he doesn't believe he's failing, or he doesn't believe that he is a complete ass. You know, like it's perfect. You know, like again, like these characters are so great. You know, like it's just like for me, it's the eagerness. Like you just have to have them be a little more like as I said before, Steve Carell or like Steve Carell would make an excellent Bottom actually.
No, I think both versions of The Office sound perfect here, and I just thank you for, before I read the next 4 acts, of putting some other possible voices in my head other than the president's, because again, my fucking brain is broken, and like I don't need to think about like I need to get my brain back to a place where I can be like, oh, that guy's a fucking moron, and like that's the end of it. Not that guy's a fucking moron and he's in charge of the Justice Department or anything else. So.
Yeah, I feel like Bottom is like a less mean Mo Howard. You know, like he thinks he's in charge. He's not in charge.
Yeah.
But somehow he, in this heap of like Quince is obviously the leader. and has to put up with Bottom, who thinks he is the leader.
Right.
You know, like the whole thing, like the idea of like, what beard should I wear? And Quincy's like, I don't care.
He looks
like,
5
who
beards.
cares?
And
Some Frenchmen don't have beards, so it doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
And then
You know, like this is just a play that we're doing. You know, like it's like a
Yeah, and he finally has to break Bottom by being like, you have to be this character because this character is startlingly handsome, okay? And he's like,
Yeah.
you're right.
and Bottom immediately like, yeah, okay, all right, I'm in it. Yeah, okay.
You're right. None of these guys can pull that off.
I'll be Paramus. Yeah, I'll do that. Like it's great. Like he's gung ho. That's the beauty of. I think maybe that's what I meant before. Is like Bottom should be gung ho. Like no matter what it is, I'm doing it. Like Jack Black would make a good.
Yes.
You know, like we're doing it tonight. You know, like it's gonna. This play is happening tonight. You know, like
You need someone. I can bring lion. Yeah, Jack Black would actually be pretty fucking fun.
I'll play the shit out of a lion.
They will fucking hang us when these fucking ladies are gonna cream their pants, and we will all have to be fucking hanged. That's how much I will get the fucking lion. Everyone's just like, no.
We're gonna cream jeans all throughout the English countryside.
Actually, what's the other hypotenuse D? Is it JB?
Yeah, Kyle Gass.
KG. So
KG.
if KG was Quince, that would be perfect.
That would be
Just like his low monotone, just like, so here's the parts. Okay. No. Oh yeah. Oh, this is fucking perfect. Yeah, well,
it's funny. There's a line in that scene that the Snug has. It's have you the lion's part written, pray you, if it be, give it me, for I am slow of study. And it was a line that I can't remember what, it might have been in college or something like that. Some speech teacher, it was like some dialect thing, and that line is burned into my fucking brain. And every time I get to it, it's like I start to twitch, and like it's like, because there's a certain cadence to it that the teacher would do, because I think we were learning like the English country dialect or something like that.
God.
And it's like, have you the lion's part written? And like it did it every fucking time, and I can't hear that line in any other way. And I blame this guy who like wouldn't shut up about it. And like we were given the line to like practice the dialect. It just fucking sucked, and he ruined that line for me, because like Snug now in my mind sounds like a goddamn idiot.
It's too bad, because it's a good one-note character where you're just like, well, do you have the lines for the line? Just fucking moron. Just like,
yeah,
get on your fucking hands and knees. That's all you have to do. And yeah, there's not much of a way to fuck up that line. So I'm sorry that teacher ruined it for you.
It was the pace that he did it with, because the character is an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, he just did it. Like, and again, it was because of the it was a dialect thing. It was just like, he was like, have you the lion's part written? Pray you, if it be, give it me. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and we all had to do it like that. It was maddening.
It's the director.
It might have been at the Renaissance Fair. I have no idea. That's right, folks. I was once at a Renaissance Fair. And that's another story. It's for another time.
And I'm ending my story right there. I was about to go into it, and no.
I will not go. I think it was closed because some kind of embezzlement or something. I can't. Like somebody was skimming off the top.
Dozens of dollars embezzled. I enjoy that the name of the play is The Most Lamentable Comedy and Most Cruel Death of Paramus and Thisbe. I just like lamentable comedy and most cruel death. Just like, oh, it's not right. It's not right the way. You're not going to believe how fucked up it is how these two die at the end.
And it goes back to those like glorious long titles, you know, that you see kind of like every once in a while in the show Blackadder, they'll make fun of that kind of those like flowery long 20-word titles of plays and stuff. You know, the grisly death and resurrection of our Lord Jesus. Wonderful.
I also love when he's talking about like how he could play Hercules. He's just like, oh yeah, I could tear a cat in, and just the idea of like defeating the mythical lion and describing that as I can tear a cat. It hits the same part of my brain of when the guy named his dog Crab. I don't know why these simple things are so wonderful to me, but just I can tear a cat. Just like this, the crowd's gonna love this. I'm gonna grab a cat. And then just like Hulk Hogan, just right down the middle, and just like
or just like idiots trying to figure out stagecraft. Like it's like, well, how could we do that? Well, I could tear a cat. You know?
Like, wait, what?
Like how are we going to redo like?
How are you going to tear? I can tear a cat. You don't think I'll tear a cat? I'll tear a cat. Okay.
Yeah, just responding to a dare that was never said. I could tear a cat.
Just again, it's horrible and cruel, but just the screeching of a cat as you're trying to do it. Cat. I love the way Bottom like fucks up his read, and then is just like, oh, but to be clear, like a lover wouldn't speak like that, and just like the way he like does it horribly, but then explains how someone would do it, just in the same way that you just said with like both the leads from The Office or with Jack Black, but like utterly shitting the bed, but going right into condescension is great. It's just such.
Well, I wouldn't do it like that.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. You'd have to do a lot better than that.
Yeah, it actually, I think too. Yeah, who knows? Maybe 300 years ago? 400 years ago? No, more than that. 600 years ago?
What, the play?
500 years ago.
I'm
trying to think of when Shakespeare wrote.
About 400.
1400, the late 1400s.
No, it's late 1500s. So about 400. 1500s? Yeah.
So like it's actually a very actory thing that I love that he's picked up on there. Like everybody wants to play the bad boy or the bad guy or the villain.
Yeah.
And like Bottom, like I remember taking headshots years ago, and the photographer, she was like, well, what type do you think we should go with? And I think I started saying something like, well, I'd like to be like a sinister. And she's like, yep, they all want to be a bad boy. And I was like, ooh. And I realized it's true. Like everybody wants to play the bad guy, and like Bottom does it here too, where it's like, I could play a tyrant. Like that's where I'm good. That's where I flourish, And then he like does a whole speech, and he's like, yeah, but I wouldn't do that like this. It's like such a great actory.
Yeah.
Like the business, like the idea that the business hasn't changed since the late 50s.
Yeah, it's great for an arrogant person to get the protagonist role and be like, yes, of course. Well, wait, like is that really the best part? Like, it's actually better to be best supporting actor, isn't it? That's where you get to it's just like you can see like Quince like correctly diagnose his ego out of the gate, but then like there's no actual way around it. He'll be jealous for every single part, including the non-speaking roaring parts. Like it feels like an actor, but also just it feels like an asshole. Like you would, again, like either of the managers on The Office would react the same way. Be like, oh yeah, I'm first in charge. Oh, am I not talking so much? Is this actually someone else leading the meeting? Then I'll co. What are they doing? Project managing? I'll co-project manage because
Oh man, I wish you hadn't said the president, because now I'm thinking how perfect that would be. Because like there's the other way you could go with it is that the idea that Bottom, he's like, I could play a tyrant and blah blah blah, and like that Bottom maybe doesn't know how to be a lover because he's never had a loving relationship in his life. Like he doesn't know what that would even look like. It's so foreign, like such a foreign idea to him.
I would like scream at her and
like this is how you love.
Well, but sexy, you know how.
Yeah, but I would do it sexy, like not like that.
You guys know, not as much as I do, but you guys know.
And that's actually kind of supported with when Quince is like, no, you can't do the lion's roar because you scare half the women in the audience. And he's like, no, but I could do a tiny one too. A tiny one.
I mean, the smallest one you ever saw.
Like maybe Bottom just doesn't have, he doesn't have the tender emotional gene. Like he just can't do it.
Right. No, I think his synapses don't connect in that way. Like he just needs to be led by the nose to one thing or the other. No, again, not at all like the president. What do you make of the line around like 70 where they all say at the same time, "That would hang us, every mother's son"? I couldn't quite picture in my head what the hell happens there. Do you think of any stage direction there about?
I want to say, I'm trying to think if productions I've seen have even kept it, because it's like a weird, like you said before about maybe being like a moment, like there might be some moments of self-aware,
Yeah.
breaking the fourth wall. Maybe it's like that, where there's like maybe a wink and a nod to the audience of like maybe some cultural reference. Like I was really confused by that too.
It's one of those places where I'm baffled that there isn't a footnote next to it. I'm like, well, this is one of those places where even sometimes there'll be a footnote that says like, we don't know what the fuck this means, but there's nothing there. It's just like, oh yeah, and then everyone on stage says this thing at the same time. So yeah, if I had to put on production, I would just cut it. But I was curious if you'd either have to do something really self-aware or just ignore it.
Yeah, because the only point they're making is like if they catch us,
because I think what they're doing is like stroking his ego and saying like, well, if you did it too much, you'd scare the women and then they'd hang us. But so then for them to all say yes, they'd hang us all, every mother's son. It's just kind of like, what are you actually
maybe
saying?
It's a moment where they're ganging up on Bottom, where everybody but Bottom says almost like, yeah, you can't do it because they'll hang us. And then Bottom relents. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I would cut it. Cut it.
Yep. Cut it. That line sucks, Billy.
That's the beauty of theater. Just cut it. Cut it.
No one on fucking set knew what the hell you were doing there, Bill. I'll tell you what. And just last thing, I just like that Bottom has to have the last line. Like Quince is like, okay, so we're good, we'll go, and Bottom's like, yes. So like he says, enough, hold or cut bowstrings, and that's one place where my footnote says we don't know what the fuck this means. Like hold or cut bowstrings, no fucking idea. Like so this, like Quince has ended the scene in the way Shakespeare usually does, say like, we'll go to the place everyone else is going, adieu. And he's like, enough. Blarky blarky.
Yeah, I have to say adjourned.
Yeah.
It's like a town hall meeting.
Yeah, agree. Co-signed. Adjourned.
I'm supposed to say adjourned.
Yes.
Also, the only other thing that I thought was interesting in that scene is that they have to rehearse their play a mile out of town. Like it's funny to me.
Oh, yeah, because he says, that's when Bob's like, so we can be really obscene. It's just like, what the fuck do you think acting is?
Yeah, because they're like around. They say something like, well, we can't do it around here because we know people here, so we're gonna go a mile away.
But also, I feel like
find a barn or something. Do they have barns or some shit?
I feel like Quince says something along the lines like, we'll be so good that we'll be like mobbed, and then Bottom is just like, yeah, and then we can just get obscene with it. And just like, what the fuck?
We should definitely do this out of
What
town.
do you think acting is? God damn.
Agreed.
We'll be oiled up, drunk. It'll be terrible. The other thing, in the intro to my edition, it said that there's a lot of speculation that he wrote this to actually be produced the first time in front of a wedding. So like people come to some rich person's wedding, and as part of the wedding they see this play. So that means that this is essentially a play within a wedding within a play within a wedding. Like you're at a wedding watching a play that has a wedding that has a play in front of it. It's just like, all right, Shakespeare, you're starting to fuck with reality.
He was doing Inception way before.
Yeah, exactly.
And at the very end, Pyramus looks at the audience and spins a top. And you're like, the top doesn't stop.
He says, I'm fucking great.
What are you in?
So, this play's good.
Yeah, it's like, it's no great shock that like rereading it is it's no surprise. But like, yeah, this is great. And then when you get into like Oberon and Puck and Titania and all, like, it's just, it is magic. Like, it's a magical thing. Like, it starts getting into this, like when the plot starts kicking in and like magic is involved. Like just the idea that like Shakespeare, it's almost like like if you as we read those first few comedies, and it's like Shakespeare's like, you know what, fuck this, I'm going to do like a magic thing, and this way the plot, I can do the plot the way I want to do the plot. Like I'm not constricted by reality.
Right. Why use metaphor and say it's as if I'm bewitched if I could just have people fucking be bewitched? Like why call a guy an ass if I could actually make him an ass?
Yeah, I think it's just like the it's like if Comedy of Errors actually ended in some kind of actual emotional change, or like some kind of emotional journey. Like you know, I complained in Comedy of Errors that it doesn't seem like anybody's the main character. It doesn't seem like anybody's going through anything. Like everybody seems pretty much the same by the end of, you know, we don't even get to see the end of in Comedy of Errors. Like the two main characters fuck off and leave, and they say, "Oh, I guess we're the same," and then they go. Like in this, it's like I feel like there's a really great emotional payoff where the characters learn. You know, like they actually learn from one another. They get a taste of something like Helena goes through some shit in this. Like she gets what she wants in a way, but it's like it's this fascinating psychological thing where she can't accept it. Like it's really well thought out. Like it's no great surprise to me that this is a classic, and it's no great surprise that it's something that we teach in schools and stuff like that, because as you say, it's accessible. It's way more accessible than anything we've read.
Well, I also just like, I'm happy with how powerful and deep it is while not having anything in the way of stakes. Like it doesn't force, like, yes, Hermia's life is theoretically in danger, but at the end of the day, if she wants to, she's got two options that don't involve her dying. And so there's so many times in like Comedy of Errors or Taming of the Shrew where either like the stakes aren't high, or you just have to needlessly raise the stakes and start threatening people with murder or rape. And here it just seems like he's confident enough to just be like, no, I'm fucking around with magic, and magic is fun, and I'll make these characters interesting. But I don't need, I don't need, you know, beasties or beheadings lurking behind anything. Like I'm playing at a higher level. So
yeah, and it definitely seems that every character is well fleshed out. Like, you know, every character has down to Snug the Riveter or whatever the hell he is, Rosie the Riveter, down to Snug, like having that kind of slow cadence, you know, all the way up to Lysander being so kind of like, hey, baby, it's gonna be fine. Like everything, like all the characters are just so better, they're just better three-dimensional characters, you know, than we've seen so far.
I really like the way all the people in the play all have like names of like third-tier dwarves or something. Like they're just
Happy, Sneezy, Doc, Snug,
Snug,
Quince,
Bottom. Just like, well, Snug and Bottom. Fuck me. Quince.
Dancer, Prancer, Vixen.
Just like, yeah, drunken reindeer.
Have you seen that yet? Have you seen the trailer for Fat Man?
I've not seen the trailer for Fat Man.
Oh my God. You have to, as soon as we hang up, do yourself a favor and see how 2020 is going to end by looking up Fat Man. And like I saw it on Twitter, and the person who tweeted it was some comedian. And she said, nothing is going to prepare you when you realize what this movie's about. You're going to go, okay. Yeah, I guess this is how we're ending 2020. And it's actually kind of perfect. You're like, yep.
We gotta fully cleanse the palate, cleanse the whole body. You know when you get a colonic and you just gotta get everything out. Like,
yep. It's like what if the national like fever dream we've all been living in for this long just vomited up a movie that is somehow just this like amorphous blob of weirdness, and like taking like time-honored characters and just making them completely unlikable and shitty. It's perfect. It's a perfect way to, yes, of course. Like, this is America. That should be the subtitle of that movie. Fat Man, This is America.
This is America.
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. We were in a love square once with Robert Dudley, Robert Devereux, and the Duke of Anjou, who we called Robert anyway because we're the Queen, and his title sounds like a dipping sauce. Fat and Greasy Citizens is presented by the players Chuck and Gabe. The theme song, A Robust Crew, is by Darren Curtis. Next week, Act 2 of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And for me, A Kid Butterfly's Cream.